I want you to listen very carefully to this because most people go their entire lives believing they are thinking freely, choosing freely, deciding freely, when in reality, their emotions, reactions, and decisions are being quietly shaped every single day, not by force, not by threats, but by psychology. The truth is, the human mind is predictable, painfully predictable. Once you understand how it works, influence stops being a mystery and starts becoming a skill. And no, this isn't about manipulation in the cheap sense. This is about understanding power, emotional power, psychological leverage, and behavioral control, the kind that operates silently without resistance, the kind that makes people feel like they arrived at decisions on their own. Most people think control comes from talking more, explaining more, proving more. That's a beginner's mistake. Real influence happens in the spaces between words, in timing, in restraint, in emotional positioning. If you want to understand why some people can walk into a room and immediately shift the atmosphere, why their presence feels heavy, grounding, commanding, it's because they understand something most people don't. The mind doesn't respond to logic first. It responds to emotion, safety, and status. The first psychological lever is controlled unpredictability. The human brain is wired to pay attention to what it cannot fully predict. Predictable people are mentally dismissed. Unpredictable people become mentally central. This doesn't mean being chaotic or unstable. It means breaking emotional patterns just enough that the other person has to keep tracking you. When you always reply instantly, you become background noise. When you always agree, you become invisible. When your mood, availability, or validation is slightly inconsistent, not cruel, not dramatic, just non-guaranteed, the brain leans in. Dopamine is released not by rewards, but by the anticipation of rewards. Casinos are built on this principle. So are emotionally influential people. When someone cannot fully predict how you'll respond, your value in their mind increases. They start thinking about you when you're not there. They replay conversations. They seek your approval without realizing it. The second lever is emotional mirroring, followed by withdrawal. People feel safest with those who understand them. When you subtly mirror someone's emotional state, their pace, their tone, their energy, their nervous system relaxes. They feel seen. This builds rapid trust. But here's where power comes in. After establishing that emotional alignment, you pull back slightly, not cold, not distant, just less emotionally available than before. The mind hates losing emotional safety once it's been established. That loss creates pursuit. Suddenly, they are the ones trying to reconnect, re-explain, re-engage. This push-pull doesn't feel manipulative to them. It feels like chemistry, like depth, like something meaningful is happening. The third lever is silence used strategically. Silence is one of the most underestimated psychological weapons. When used correctly, it creates pressure without aggression. Most people rush to fill silence because silence forces self-reflection. When you don't immediately respond to emotional outbursts, accusations, or even praise, the other person starts adjusting themselves. They question what they said. They soften their tone. They over-explain. Silence shifts the power dynamic because it removes reactive energy. The calmer person always holds more control. This is why interrogations use silence. This is why confident individuals don't rush their words. Silence makes people project their own insecurities onto you. And once they do that, you're no longer chasing control. It's being handed to you. The fourth lever is framing reality before the other person does. Whoever defines the meaning of an interaction controls the emotional outcome. If someone says, "You don't care," and you react defensively, you've accepted their frame. But if you calmly reframe, I don't rush emotional reactions, I respond intentionally. You shift the narrative. Humans don't argue with facts as much as they argue with interpretations. When you confidently define your behavior in a composed, grounded way, most people accept it. Why? Because certainty feels like authority. The mind looks for leaders in moments of emotional ambiguity. If you provide the frame early, others settle into it. The fifth lever is scarcity of validation. This one is uncomfortable for people who crave approval. Constant validation lowers your perceived value. Rare validation amplifies it. When praise is earned rather than given freely, it carries weight. This doesn't mean being cold or withholding kindness. It means being selective. When someone receives approval from you and knows it wasn't automatic, it becomes meaningful. They internalize it. They work to maintain it. The brain values what feels limited. This is basic psychology, and yet most people sabotage themselves by overgiving emotionally, then wondering why they're taken for granted. Influence increases when your emotional currency is respected. The sixth lever is emotional consistency under pressure. This is the highest form of psychological control and the rarest. When everyone else becomes reactive, defensive, loud, or emotional, the person who stays grounded automatically rises in status. The nervous system looks for stability. If you remain calm while others escalate, people unconsciously defer to you. This is why leaders speak slower during crises. This is why authority figures don't argue emotionally. Emotional regulation is dominance without aggression. When someone realizes they cannot shake your center, they stop trying to control the interaction and start adapting to you instead. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Influence doesn't belong to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to the most emotionally disciplined one. People who lose control of their emotions give control to others. People who master their emotional responses quietly control the emotional direction of conversations, relationships, and outcomes. What makes these psychological principles powerful is not that they force anyone to do anything. It's that they work with how the human mind already operates. The brain seeks certainty, emotional safety, and meaning. When you provide those on your terms, people attach. They trust, they follow, not because they're weak, but because the mind naturally gravitates toward what feels grounding and intentional. Most people are unconsciously controlled because they're emotionally transparent. Their reactions are predictable. Their boundaries are porous. Their validation is cheap. Once you change that, once you slow down, regulate, and become deliberate, you don't need to dominate anyone. You don't need to convince. Your presence does the work. And here's where everything comes together. The goal isn't to control people like objects. The goal is to control the emotional environment so well that people choose alignment. True psychological power is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It simply exists, steady, restrained, and aware. When you understand these dynamics, you stop begging for respect. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop reacting to every emotional hook thrown your way. You become selective with your energy, intentional with your words, and calm under pressure. And that shift alone changes how people treat you, how they listen to you, how seriously they take you. Because at the end of the day, the mind doesn't submit to force. It submits to perceived authority, emotional safety, and self-control. And the person who masters those doesn't need to control anyone loudly. Their influence is felt long after they've stopped speaking. People don't realize this, but the strongest form of influence happens when the other person believes they are in control. The moment someone feels dominated, pressured, or forced, resistance activates. The mind closes, defenses rise. But when influence is subtle, when it feels like choice rather than command, the mind opens willingly. This is why psychological leverage is always indirect. It works through self-perception, through emotion, through identity. One of the deepest mistakes people make is trying to change behavior before understanding motivation. Behavior is the surface, motivation is the engine. If you want to influence someone, you don't argue with what they're doing. You align with why they believe they're doing it. Once a person feels understood at the motive level, they become emotionally cooperative. Their guard drops. They start revealing more. And information is power. The more someone talks about themselves, the more influence you gain, not because you use it against them, but because you now understand the emotional buttons that already exist. Another critical psychological dynamic is identity reinforcement. People act in ways that are consistent with how they see themselves. If you subtly reinforce a desired identity, you're the kind of person who thinks things through, or you value depth over drama. The mind unconsciously tries to live up to that image. This is far more effective than asking someone to change. You're not correcting behavior, you're shaping self-concept. Once the identity shifts, behavior follows naturally. Notice how powerful individuals rarely tell others what to do. They suggest, they imply, they plant ideas and allow the other person to adopt them as their own. The mind fiercely protects ideas it believes it created. If someone feels an idea is theirs, they'll defend it, act on it, and commit to it far more strongly than if it were imposed. This is why asking the right questions often creates more influence than giving answers. Timing is another invisible weapon. The same words spoken at the wrong moment feel manipulative. Spoken at the right moment, they feel profound. Influence requires patience. Emotional windows open briefly, after vulnerability, after conflict, after success, after loss. Speak too early and you're ignored. Speak too late and the moment is gone. The people who seem naturally persuasive are often just emotionally observant. They wait, they watch, and when the mind is receptive, they speak simply and calmly. Most people expose their need too quickly. Need repels power. The mind associates neediness with instability. When someone feels you need their approval, agreement, or reaction, the balance shifts against you. Detachment, on the other hand, creates gravity. This doesn't mean indifference. It means self-sufficiency. When your emotional state isn't dependent on another person's response, you become psychologically unmovable. And unmovable people are influential by default. Another underestimated factor is consistency between words and behavior. The mind is constantly scanning for congruence. If someone's actions don't match their words, trust erodes silently. But when your behavior aligns perfectly with what you say, when your boundaries, tone, and actions all tell the same story, the brain registers you as reliable. Reliable people are followed. Their influence compounds over time. There is also immense power in letting others underestimate you. When someone believes they have the upper hand, they relax. They reveal more. They make emotional mistakes. Quiet confidence doesn't demand recognition. It allows others to feel superior temporarily, which lowers their defenses. Influence often grows strongest when the other person doesn't realize it's happening. Control of your own emotional impulses is the foundation beneath all of this. If you are easily provoked, easily flattered, easily offended, your influence collapses. Emotional mastery is not about suppressing feelings. It's about choosing which ones get expressed and when. The moment someone realizes they can trigger you, they gain leverage. The moment they realize they can't, they lose it. People are constantly testing each other at a subconscious level, not with words, but with tone, timing, reactions, and boundaries. Every interaction is a silent negotiation of status. The one who reacts less, explains less, and stays centered longer usually sets the emotional rules of the interaction. Others adjust, they soften, they recalibrate. And here's something few people are aware of. Influence is cumulative. It builds quietly through repeated emotional experiences. One calm response, one well-timed silence, one moment of restraint. Over time, the mind associates you with stability, clarity, and authority. When decisions arise, when emotions run high, people instinctively look toward the person who has proven they don't collapse under pressure. The mind is not controlled through force, it's guided through experience. People don't remember what you said as much as they remember how they felt in your presence. If being around you makes them feel grounded, understood, and slightly challenged, your influence deepens without effort. And as these dynamics layer over time, something subtle shifts. People start checking themselves before speaking to you. They seek your reaction. They wait for your response before fully committing emotionally. Not because you demanded power, but because psychological gravity naturally forms around emotional discipline and intentional presence. At this stage, what matters most is understanding that influence is not a switch you flip. It's a state you maintain. Every interaction either reinforces your psychological position or weakens it. This is why emotionally impulsive people struggle to hold power long term. They may dominate a moment, but they lose the mind over time. Consistency, not intensity, is what conditions behavior. One of the most subtle ways influence operates is through expectation setting. The mind unconsciously adjusts behavior to meet what it believes is expected of it. When you assume competence, maturity, or emotional responsibility from someone without demanding it, they often rise to meet that assumption. This works because humans dislike internal dissonance. If they see themselves as capable in your eyes, behaving otherwise feels uncomfortable. Another psychological pressure point is non-reactive boundaries. When you state a boundary calmly and don't justify it excessively, the other person's mind registers strength. Over-explaining signals doubt. Calm clarity signals certainty, and certainty is persuasive. Most people aren't looking to challenge strength, they're looking to test weakness. When they don't find it, they move differently around you. Influence also grows when you stop competing for dominance. Power struggles drain authority. The moment you feel the urge to win a conversation, you've already lost psychological ground. Real control doesn't argue. It allows others to reveal their position while you hold yours quietly. This creates asymmetry, and asymmetry creates leverage. People are far more influenced by what you don't say than what you do. Restraint suggests depth. Brevity suggests confidence. When your words are minimal but precise, the mind fills in the gaps with significance. This is why composed individuals often seem more intelligent, even when they're saying less. The mind associates silence with thoughtfulness and authority. Another overlooked dynamic is emotional contrast. If you are always warm, warmth loses impact. If you are always serious, seriousness becomes predictable. Influence strengthens when emotional responses are intentional rather than constant. When your approval, humor, or intensity appears selectively, it registers as meaningful. The mind pays attention to changes in emotional temperature. Control is also reinforced by how you handle disagreement. Agreeable people are liked. Respected people are not always agreeable. When you calmly disagree without hostility, you demonstrate independence. Independence is psychologically attractive because it signals self-trust, and self-trust is contagious. People instinctively follow those who believe in their own judgment. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you stop seeking to be understood and start seeking to be clear. The need to be understood often leads to over-explaining, defending, or justifying. Clarity, on the other hand, is assertive without aggression. When you say less and mean it fully, the other person's mind adjusts around your certainty. There is also immense influence in emotional pacing. If someone is rushing emotionally, demanding answers, reactions, reassurance, and you slow the pace, you reset the dynamic. The slower emotional rhythm usually takes control. This is because the nervous system synchronizes with the calmest presence in the room. Another silent form of power is selective vulnerability. When you choose carefully what to reveal and when, people lean in. Oversharing reduces mystery and leverage. Controlled openness builds trust without giving away control. The mind values access that feels earned. Over time, these behaviors create a psychological reputation. People begin to expect composure from you, they expect boundaries, they expect depth. And expectation shapes interaction before a word is spoken. By the time a conversation begins, half the influence has already happened. This is why true psychological control doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet, almost boring to observers. But internally, dynamics are shifting. Decisions are being shaped. Emotional weight is being redistributed. And the person who once tried to lead the interaction now finds themselves responding instead. Understand this clearly. Psychological power is not about domination, intimidation, or manipulation. Those are shortcuts taken by insecure minds. Real control comes from mastery of emotion, presence, timing, and self-respect. When you stop reacting impulsively, when you stop over-explaining, when you stop handing your emotional state to other people, something fundamental changes. You no longer chase influence. Influence comes to you. The person who controls their emotions controls the room. The person who stays calm when others lose control silently becomes the authority. You don't need louder words. You don't need constant validation. You don't need to prove anything. Your restraint becomes your power. Your silence becomes your message. Your consistency becomes your reputation. And here's the truth most people avoid. If you cannot control yourself, you will always be controlled by someone else, their moods, their approval, their reactions, their chaos. But the moment you develop emotional discipline, boundaries, and intentional presence, the dynamic flips. People adjust, conversations shift, respect appears where it never existed before. This isn't about controlling minds. It's about becoming so grounded, so intentional, and so psychologically stable that others naturally fall into alignment with you. Power doesn't announce itself. It's felt. And once you understand that, you stop trying to influence because your presence already does.